Daniel Bogan was a cowboy, rustler, and outlaw of the Old West.
A man stands at his own home in Missouri, hanging a picture on his living room wall. He is the most famous outlaw in American history. He has a $30,000 bounty on his head, equivalent to over $1 million today. The man standing behind him is his cousin, his friend, a trusted member of his gang. That cousin is about to shoot him in the back of the head. A drunk poker player walks into a saloon in Deadwood, South Dakota. He sits down at a card table. For the first time in his life, he sits with his back to the door. That decision will kill him within 10 minutes. A teenage gunfighter steps into a darkened bedroom in New Mexico territory. He has killed 21 men by the age of 21. He is asking in Spanish who is in the room. The lawman waiting in the dark already has his finger on the trigger. The most famous outlaws in the Wild West did not die the way the legends say they did. They did not go down in glorious shootouts on dusty main streets at noon. Most of them died in moments that were strangely small, cheap, sometimes humiliating. But the ways they died, the specific, disturbing details that history books often soften, tell you everything about what the Wild West actually was. So let's go through them. The Wild West outlaws who died in the most disturbing ways. Jesse James. It is Jesse James, the most famous outlaw in American history, the leader of the James Younger Gang, the man who robbed banks, trains, and stagecoaches across the American Midwest for 16 years. The man whose name became synonymous with the entire concept of the Wild West outlaw. So who exactly was Jesse James? Jesse Woodson James was born on September 5, 1847 in Kearney, Missouri. He grew up during the bloody chaos of the Missouri-Kansas border conflicts that preceded and continued through the American Civil War. As a teenager, he joined a Confederate guerrilla unit called Quantrill's Raiders. By the time the war ended, Jesse James was 19 years old and had been killing men for years. He never stopped. Together with his older brother Frank, Jesse formed what became the most successful outlaw gang in American history. Between 1866 and 1882, the James Younger Gang robbed at least a dozen banks, 7 trains, and several stagecoaches. They killed numerous people in the process. The American press loved him. Newspapers portrayed him as a Robin Hood figure, a former Confederate hero striking back at the Yankee banks and railroads that were exploiting ordinary Americans. Most of this image was fiction. Jesse James was not stealing from the rich to give to the poor. He was stealing from the rich and keeping the money. But here is the thing about Jesse James. By 1882, he was tired. His gang had been decimated. His brother had retired. Most of his closest friends were dead, in prison, or had cooperated with authorities. Pinkerton detectives had been hunting him for over a decade. The Missouri governor had put a $10,000 bounty on his head, $5,000 for capture, $5,000 for proof of death. Jesse was 34 years old. He had a wife and 2 young children. He was living under a false name in St. Joseph, Missouri. He had decided to retire. He had only 2 associates left, 2 brothers named Robert and Charlie Ford. They had been junior members of his gang for years. What Jesse did not know was that Robert Ford had been secretly negotiating with the Missouri governor for months. The deal: Robert Ford would receive a full pardon for any of his crimes plus the $10,000 bounty if he could deliver Jesse James, alive or dead. The morning of April 3, 1882 was warm and scent. Jesse was at home with his wife and children. The Ford brothers had been staying with him for several days, planning what was supposed to be the gang's next robbery. Jesse was wearing a gun belt that morning. He was always armed. Then he did something that surprised everyone in the room. He took off his guns. He set them down on the bed. He told the Ford brothers he was going to clean and adjust a picture that was hanging crooked on the wall in his living room. He climbed onto a chair to reach the picture. His back was turned to the Ford brothers. His guns were on the bed. Robert Ford drew his revolver and shot Jesse James in the back of the head. Jesse died instantly. But here is the disturbing part of his death that most accounts soften. The Ford brothers immediately ran to the local sheriff to claim the reward. They were initially celebrated. They sent telegrams to the governor announcing their accomplishment. They posed for photographs with Jesse's body. Then the public reaction turned. Surprisingly, Americans did not see the Fords as heroes. They saw them as cowards, murderers, men who had killed a friend in his own home, in front of his wife and children, while his back was turned and his guns were off. A popular ballad emerged within weeks of Jesse's death. Its chorus identified Robert Ford as the dirty little coward who shot Mr. Howard, using the false name Jesse had been living under. Robert Ford spent the rest of his life trying to escape the reputation. He never did. He was shot to death in a saloon in Creede, Colorado in 1892, 10 years after killing Jesse, by a man named Edward O'Kelly, who specifically traveled to Colorado to kill him. O'Kelly's motive, according to his own statement, was that he wanted to be known as the man who killed Jesse James. Jesse James died with his back turned. Robert Ford died trying to outrun what he had done. The most famous outlaw in American history was killed for a reward that destroyed every man involved in his death. Wild Bill Hickok. Now let's go to Deadwood, South Dakota, where one of the most famous lawmen and gunfighters in the Wild West died, holding a poker hand that became legend. James Butler Hickok, known to history as Wild Bill, was 39 years old in August 1876. He had been a stagecoach driver, a Union scout during the Civil War, a sheriff, a marshal, and a professional gambler. He had killed a documented 7 men in gunfights, though the actual number was likely higher. He was also one of the most photographed men in America. His long hair, his mustache, his Colt revolvers, Wild Bill was the visual definition of what an American frontiersman was supposed to look like. By 1876, his eyesight was failing. He had begun wearing glasses. He had been arrested for vagrancy in Cheyenne earlier that year. He was running out of money. He had come to Deadwood to gamble. Deadwood was an illegal mining town in the Black Hills of what is now South Dakota. The land was officially Native American territory under treaty, but gold had been discovered. Thousands of prospectors had ignored the treaty and rushed in. The town had no legal status, no formal law enforcement, and a population of miners, gamblers, prostitutes, and outlaws. Wild Bill arrived in Deadwood in July 1876. On August 2, 1876, he walked into the number 10 saloon. He found a poker game in progress. He asked to join. There was only one open seat at the table. It was the seat that faced away from the door. Wild Bill always sat with his back to the wall. Always. He had spent his entire adult life as a target, He had survived multiple assassination attempts. The single most consistent rule of his life was that he never sat where he could not see who was coming through the door. He asked the other players to switch seats. They refused. For the first time in his life, Wild Bill Hickok sat down with his back to the door. The game lasted about an hour. A drifter named Jack McCall walked into the saloon. He had lost money to Wild Bill the previous night. He had been drinking all morning. He walked behind Wild Bill, drew a revolver, and shot him in the back of the head at point-blank range. Wild Bill was holding a hand of cards. 2 black aces. 2 black eights. A 5th card whose identity has been disputed for nearly 150 years. That hand became known as the dead man's hand. Card players still recognize the combination. It is the most famous poker hand in American history. Wild Bill Hickok died because he sat in the wrong chair. But here is the disturbing twist that most accounts leave out. Jack McCall was tried for the murder by an informal miners' court in Deadwood the day after the shooting. He claimed Wild Bill had killed his brother in Kansas years earlier and that he had been seeking revenge. The miners' court acquitted him. McCall left Deadwood as a free man. He spent the next several months bragging about killing Wild Bill Hickok in saloons across Wyoming and the Dakota Territory. A federal investigation determined that the Deadwood Miners' Court had no legal authority. Deadwood was on Native American land. American law did not extend there. The acquittal had no legal standing. McCall was rearrested. He was tried again, this time in a federal court in Yankton, Dakota Territory. The federal court did not accept his story about an avenged brother. McCall had no brother. He was convicted of murder and sentenced to hang. Jack McCall was executed on March 1, 1877, 7 months after killing Wild Bill Hickok. His final words on the gallows are reported as, "Oh God, the man who killed the most famous gunfighter in the West died begging. The man who survived hundreds of close calls died because he could not get a different chair." Billy the Kid here is the case that made a legend. William Henry McCarty Jr., known to history as Billy the Kid, was 21 years old when he was killed. He had been killing men since he was 17. The actual number of his victims is disputed by historians, but the most commonly cited figure is 21 men by the age of 21. So who exactly was Billy the Kid? He was born in New York City in 1859. His mother was Irish. His father was unknown. After his mother's death from tuberculosis when Billy was 15, he was effectively orphaned in the New Mexico Territory. He drifted into cattle theft, then into the violence that erupted between rival ranching factions during the Lincoln County War of 1878. By the late 1870s, Billy the Kid was the most wanted man in the New Mexico Territory. His final hours were defined by one specific person: Pat Garrett. Pat Garrett was the sheriff of Lincoln County, New Mexico. He had been hired specifically to kill or capture Billy the Kid. Before becoming sheriff, Garrett had known Billy personally. Some accounts say they had been friends. This detail matters for what happened in Garrett's final encounter with him. Garrett had captured Billy the Kid in December 1880. Billy had been sentenced to hang. While awaiting execution, he made one of the most spectacular escapes in Wild West history. He killed 2 of his guards and rode out of Lincoln on a horse he had stolen. He had been on the run for 2.5 months when Pat Garrett found him. The location was Fort Sumner, New Mexico Territory, a small settlement on the Pecos River. Billy had a girlfriend there. The night of July 14, 1881 was hot. Garrett had received information that Billy was at the home of a man named Pete Maxwell. He went to investigate. He brought 2 deputies with him. Garrett entered Maxwell's bedroom alone in the dark. He sat on the edge of Maxwell's bed. He began to question Maxwell about Billy's whereabouts. What none of them knew was that Billy was outside in the yard. He was shirtless. He was barefoot. He was hungry. He walked into Maxwell's house looking for something to eat. He saw a figure sitting on the bed. He did not recognize Pat Garrett in the darkness. He raised his pistol and asked in Spanish, "Quién es? Who is it?" Pat Garrett recognized Billy's voice. He drew his revolver and fired twice. The first shot struck Billy in the chest. He was dead before he hit the floor. But here is the disturbing part of his death. He was unarmed at the moment of his death. Or at least, different accounts say different things. Garrett insisted that Billy had a pistol. Some witnesses said Billy was holding a knife and a piece of meat from the kitchen, looking for something to cut. Some witnesses said Billy was holding nothing at all. What is undisputed is this: Billy had walked into a dark room asking who was there. Pat Garrett shot him without speaking. The legendary Billy the Kid was killed at 21 years old, shirtless and barefoot, asking a question in a dark bedroom by a man he had once called a friend. But the disturbing part of this story does not end with Billy's death. It continues with Pat Garrett. For the rest of his life, Pat Garrett was haunted by the killing. He wrote a book defending his actions. He gave interviews. He insisted he had killed Billy in self-defense. Most people in New Mexico did not believe him. Garrett's reputation suffered for years. He was unable to win re-election as sheriff. He drifted between jobs. He became increasingly bitter. In 1908, 27 years after killing Billy, Pat Garrett was shot in the back of the head on a road outside Las Cruces, New Mexico. The man who shot him, Wayne Brazel, was acquitted at trial under circumstances that contemporaries described as deeply suspicious. Some historians believe Pat Garrett was killed by men connected to the same political and ranching interests that had benefited from Billy the Kid's death decades earlier. The man who killed the most famous outlaw in the West was killed in the same way he had killed Billy. In the dark, without warning, by someone he had not seen coming. John W. Sley Hardin, now back to Texas, where one of the deadliest gunfighters in American history died in a saloon, drinking with his back turned. Exactly the way his most famous victim had died. John Wesley Hardin was born in 1853 in Bonham, Texas. He was the son of a Methodist preacher. He was named after the founder of Methodism. He killed his first man at 15. By the time he was 30, he had killed at least 27 men, possibly as many as 40. He killed white men and black men, Mexicans and Native Americans, lawmen and outlaws. He killed in arguments, in robberies, in ambushes, and in calculated assassinations. He was, by his own claim, the deadliest gunfighter who had ever lived. He spent 15 years in prison after being captured by Texas Rangers in 1877. While in prison, he studied law. He read constantly. He wrote his autobiography. He was released in 1894 at the age of 41. He moved to El Paso, Texas. He opened a law practice. He drank heavily. He was, by every external measure, trying to leave his violent past behind. But here is the thing about John Wesley Hardin. He could not stop drinking. He could not stop fighting. He could not stop being who he had always been. In El Paso, he became involved with a woman named Beulah M. Rose. She was the wife of a man Hardin had known. The relationship was complicated and led to tensions with several local figures. One of those figures was a constable named John Selman. Selman had a reputation himself. He had killed several men in his career, including a Texas outlaw named Bass Outlaw in a saloon in El Paso the previous year. The conflict between Hardin and Selman simmered for weeks. On the night of August 19, 1895, John Wesley Hardin walked into the Acme Saloon in El Paso. He stood at the bar, drinking with another man. He was rolling dice on the bar. His back was to the door. The most lethal gunfighter in American history, the man who had spent his entire life paranoid about ambushes, was drunk. He was distracted. He was rolling dice and laughing. John Selman walked into the saloon behind him. Selman drew his revolver and shot Hardin in the back of the head. Hardin fell forward onto the bar. Selman fired 3 more times into his body as he fell. Hardin was pronounced dead at the scene. He had killed 40 men. He had survived the most violent decades of frontier Texas. He had survived 15 years in a state penitentiary. He died because he sat with his back to the door, drunk, rolling dice in a saloon, the same way Wild Bill Hickok had died 19 years earlier. But here is the part of Hardin's death that became scandal. John Selman was tried for murder. The jury could not agree on a verdict. Some believed he had killed Hardin in self-defense. Others believed it had been a calculated assassination. A new trial was scheduled. Before it could happen, John Selman himself was killed in a gunfight outside a saloon in El Paso 8 months later. He was shot by a U.S. Marshal named George Scarborough during what was described as a personal dispute. George Scarborough was killed 5 years later in another gunfight. The man who killed John Wesley Hardin was killed by a man who was killed by another man. The most lethal gunfighter in American history died because he could not stop being himself. His killer died because he could not stop either. The cycle continued for years. What these DEATHS reveal, every man on this list shared something unexpected. They all died because of small mistakes that should not have killed them. Jesse James died because he took off his guns to adjust a picture. Wild Bill Hickok died because he sat in the wrong chair. Billy the Kid died because he walked into a dark room without his shirt or shoes. John Wesley Hardin died because he turned his back to a saloon door while rolling dice. These were the most paranoid, most violent, most experienced killers in the American West. They had survived decades of violence. They had killed dozens of men between them. They had escaped from prisons, evaded posses, and survived gunfights that should have ended them. And in the end, none of it mattered. They died in moments of weakness, or pleasure, or domesticity, or distraction. A historian who has studied frontier violence for over 30 years described this in an interview published in 2019. He said, "The men we remember as the great Wild West outlaws did not die in their finest moments. They died in their most ordinary moments. They died because they wanted to hang a picture, sit in a different chair, eat a piece of meat, or roll dice with friends." He said, "The legend is the gunfight at noon on the dusty street. The reality is the bullet in the back of the head, while the victim was distracted by something completely unrelated to the violence that defined their lives. He said they did not die like outlaws. They died like ordinary people who happened to have a lot of enemies. Here is what really happened to the most famous Wild West outlaws. Jesse James was shot in the back of the head by a friend who wanted the reward. The friend was killed by a man who wanted the credit for killing him. Wild Bill Hickok was shot in the back of the head while holding a poker hand that became the most famous in American history. His killer was acquitted, then retried, then hanged. Billy the Kid was shot in a dark room by a man he had once called a friend. The friend was haunted for the rest of his life and killed in the same way. John Wesley Hardin was shot in the back of the head while rolling dice. His killer was killed by a man who was killed by another man. The Wild West is remembered as a place where men faced each other in the street at noon, and the better gunfighter walked away. It was not. It was a place where the most dangerous men in America died because they took off their guns, sat in the wrong chair, walked into the wrong room, or turned their back on the wrong door. They died like everyone else dies. In a moment, they were not paying attention. The disturbing thing about the deaths of the most famous Wild West outlaws is not